Night falls slowly and the world grows silent. You're there, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring into nothingness. The phone isn't ringing. Nobody asks if you arrived safely. And this emptiness, which you never tell anyone about, weighs like a stone on your chest. Sometimes it feels like you've forgotten how to belong. It seems like there's a distance between you and the rest of the world, a distance that no one sees, but you feel every day. And deep down, way down deep, you wonder why it's always like this. Why is it so difficult to connect? Perhaps you've learned to live in silence, to disguise it, saying everything's fine when it's not, because showing pain has always seemed too dangerous. And when the heart is hurt for too long, it hides. He gets used to being alone, and you just keep living like that, trying not to bother anyone, trying to be light even while carrying the world inside, trying to exist without making a sound. I know it hurts when no one notices your absence, when conversations continue without you, when the invitation never arrives, when the group moves on, but you're left out. And this is not fussiness, nor drama, nor exaggeration. It's an invisible mark that you've learned to hide. You look around and think, is there something wrong with me? And that question echoes within the soul like a persistent whisper, a whisper that hurts, a whisper that you try to silence. Sometimes you feel like you were born out of place. It's as if everyone received a manual you've never seen. You observe, try to understand, try to adjust, but something inside you always seems out of sync. It's like knocking on the right door, but it never opens. And then you fall silent for a little while longer. You back away. You become smaller, because being seen has become too tiring, and waiting hurts more than being alone. Perhaps no one knows what you're carrying. No one sees the effort you make to appear strong. No one sees the nights you spend trying to figure out where you got lost. No one notices this mixture of tiredness, longing, and silence. And yet, you continue. Do it your way. Still, deep, carrying stories he never told, and feelings that could never be put into words. But look, there's something important here, something you may never have heard before. Psychology suggests that people like that aren't cold. They are not far apart. They are not unsociable. They're just people who felt too much, too soon. People who have learned to survive in silence. People who guard their hearts so they won't be broken again. And if you recognized yourself in this, breathe. There's a reason for all of this. There is a silent dilemma that many people carry. A dilemma that hurts deep in the soul. The constant feeling of having few friends, or almost none. Not for lack of trying, not for lack of love, but for something deeper, older, more difficult to explain. It's a behavior that repeats itself without you realizing it. An emotional pattern that follows you like a shadow, and you try to understand where it comes from. But everything seems too confusing. Many people live with this in secret. Good people, sensitive people, people who love deeply, but are afraid to show it. People who drift away unintentionally. They protect themselves by instinct. They feel too much but express too little, and the world looks and says he's shy, he's withdrawn. But that's not quite it. It's much more complex than that. Perhaps you've already wondered, why is it so difficult to maintain friendships? Why does it always seem like I'm alone? Could the problem be me? These questions hurt because they seem unanswerable. And the truth is, deep down, you even know it's not a lack of love. It's fear. It's exhaustion. It's a way of defending oneself. It's a desperate attempt to avoid suffering again. Psychology shows that having few friends doesn't necessarily mean being cold. He is wounded. These are people who have learned to observe before trusting. They test the waters before giving their heart away. And that doesn't mean weakness, it means care. It signifies emotional history. It signifies experiences that have shaped one's way of being. Experiences that still resonate. Experiences that left their mark. Sometimes people with few friends feel like they don't fit in anywhere. He feels that he speaks incorrectly, acts incorrectly, feels incorrectly. A constant weight of inadequacy accompanies every step, and nobody sees it. Nobody notices. Because on the outside you seem calm, it seems independent. He seems like someone who prefers to be alone. But deep down, there's a silent plea, a plea for genuine connection. The psychological dilemma is this: you want closeness, but you're afraid of getting hurt. He wants to be understood, but fears being rejected. She wants to have someone close by, but is afraid of losing them. And this creates an internal conflict that no one understands. A conflict that grips. What a mess. That makes you retreat when all you wanted was to move forward. And you live in this paradox, hoping that someone will see what I see, you never say. All of this has a root cause. None of this came from nothing. Those who have few friends generally did not choose solitude. He chose to survive. Back in your childhood, you may have learned that trusting someone hurts, that your emotional needs were too great for the person who was supposed to take care of you, that his way of feeling was exaggerated, sensitive, and wrong. And so, as not to bother anyone, you kept quiet. He kept it. He swallowed it all. When a child doesn't find a safe space, they create their own world. A silent internal world full of thoughts and observations. That's where she takes refuge when the outside world becomes a threat. And this habit becomes part of the adult personality. The habit of fending for oneself, not asking for help, to endure everything in silence. Because one day you learned that depending on someone hurt, and he preferred to trust only himself, even if it hurt. Over time, this pattern becomes an automatic reflex. You grow up, but you remain alert to every sign of emotional risk. Analyze glances, tones of voice, subtle gestures. Try to anticipate who will hurt you before it happens. Not out of paranoia, but for protection. For an emotional memory that still pulsates. And this silent filter keeps you away without you even realizing it. It prevents you from letting people in, even when you wish the opposite, even when the heart yearns for connection. Another important point is expectation. People who developed strong emotional intelligence very early on create a high emotional pattern. They desire true, intense, loyal bonds. Bonds that are not easily broken. But the modern world delivers quick and superficial connections. And that's disappointing. It's tiring. It hurts. And the person thinks, it's better to be alone than to get frustrated again. And so the cycle repeats itself. Insecurity also plays an important role. It doesn't appear as explicit fear. It disguises itself as independence, of strength, self-sufficiency. But deep down there's a constant feeling of not being enough for anyone. Because it's not interesting, it's not necessary, and because you believe that, you don't get close. Even if deep down, you want to be seen. And finally, there is the repeated pattern. You get used to being the other plan. Get used to being the observer, not the one who is chosen. Get used to entering relationships slowly and exiting them quickly. It gets you used to believing that it makes no difference. And when life tells you that for many years, something inside you shuts down, turn it off to avoid suffering, shut down to survive. And loneliness becomes a habit that seems like a choice, but it's actually a scar. Imagine a girl named Elisa. She was always calm, discreet, and observant. She had a shy smile and a way about her that suggested she carried the world in her eyes. At work, everyone talked amongst themselves, except for her. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how to get in. Her colleagues would make plans to meet for coffee and she would say she was busy. Then he would look out the window wondering why he could never get closer. Deep down, she longed to belong. But from the outside, it looked distant. And no one imagined how much that silence hurt. One day, Elisa overheard two people talking about a party. She wasn't invited, and yet she said, "Oh, okay." I wasn't going anyway. But when she was alone, her heart ached. It wasn't about the party. It was about never being remembered. It was about carrying that feeling of always being the name that no one else thinks of. She sat down on the toilet and took a deep breath to keep from crying. And in that trembling breath, it became clear. She wasn't alone by choice. I was alone because I was afraid. Now imagine Lucas. A kind, intelligent, quiet boy. He was always the type of person who listened more than he spoke. In childhood, he learned to fend for himself, and this became a habit. As an adult, I got along well with people, but never had any intimacy with anyone. When someone got too close, he would back away. Not because he didn't like it, but because he didn't know how to deal with the possibility of getting hurt. He was afraid of forming bonds, fear of losing, fear of repeating old stories. One day, a coworker said, "You seem like you don't like anyone." Lucas smiled and joked, as always. But that phrase kept echoing inside him. If they only knew how hard I try, he thought. Try to trust. Try to open up. Trying to have a conversation without feeling your chest tighten. But nobody saw that. No one imagined the silent struggle he waged with himself every day. An internal battle that never showed on the outside. These stories seem simple, but they carry within them what many people experience in silence. The desire to have someone, but the impulse to pull away. The desire to talk, but the fear of not being understood. The neediness hidden behind a discreet smile. Loneliness hidden within routine. A heart that longs for closeness, but doesn't know how to ask for it. And all of this stems from the same root. The fear of feeling again that pain that once hurt so much. The pain that shaped the way we exist. Elisa and Lucas are no exceptions. They are mirrors. Mirrors of the emotional journey of someone who grew up learning to survive in silence. People who love deeply but give slowly. People who observe everything, but are rarely observed themselves. People who seem distant, but keep their hearts in a secret corner. People who carry stories that nobody knows, and feelings that no one notices. Perhaps you'll see yourself in them, and perhaps, for the first time, you'll realize that you're not alone in feeling this way. Almost no one realizes that having few friends doesn't mean people are avoiding the world. She's just trying to protect herself from a past that still hurts. On the outside, the person appears calm, independent, even disinterested. But inside there is an extremely sensitive heart that feels everything intensely. This is someone who analyzes every word before speaking, for fear of sounding inappropriate. Someone who thinks twice before sending a message, for fear of bothering someone. Silence is not emptiness. It's a defense. It's emotional memory. It's the body saying, "Please don't hurt me again." No one realizes that these people love in a profound way. They don't form bonds easily, but when they do, they give what is most beautiful to them. They are faithful, loyal, and present. But they almost never get to that point, because fear paralyzes them beforehand. The world looks and says, "It's closed." But she doesn't know that there's a heart there that has spent too long trying to be strong, holding back tears for too long, too much time pretending I didn't need anyone. And this strength that everyone admires comes at a high emotional price, a price paid in silence. What no one sees is the inner exhaustion, the psychological strain of always feeling out of place, from trying to fit in and never succeeding, from observing conversations and thinking, "I don't know where I fit in," wanting to send a message but freezing before typing, to feel nostalgic for connections you never had. It's a profound feeling of not belonging, as if the world were moving too fast, too noisy, and you would always stay one step behind. There is also a hidden void between the attitudes. Those who have few friends often laugh easily, but become sad quickly. This is someone who holds on to small frustrations as if they were daggers. Someone who senses when they are not a priority. Someone who can tell when they are being tolerated and not liked. This sixth emotional sense, developed in childhood, never switches off. It makes people see nuances that nobody else sees, and that hurts her even before the pain happens. It hurts prematurely. It hurts silently. There is also invisible behavior. The slow, almost imperceptible distancing. The person disappears without realizing they are disappearing. He protects himself without realizing he is building walls. And when she tries to explain, the words won't come out. Not because she doesn't know what she feels, but because she feels too much. Too much to fit into simple sentences. Too much to trust that she will be understood. That's why she keeps it. Hold on until it hurts. And perhaps the most profound point is this. Those who have few friends never stop longing for connection. She never stopped dreaming of a light-hearted conversation, a sincere hug, a simple, "How are you really doing?" But the fear of being disappointed again is so great that the person chooses the safest path, emotional isolation. It's not a lack of love. It's excessive caution, excessive memory, too many old wounds, wounds that no one sees but that they shape the entire way of existing. Over time, living like this creates a silent pain, a pain that doesn't scream, but weighs heavily. You start to believe that you really don't miss it, that their presence is dispensable. The world goes on the same with or without you. And this idea, repeated for years, gradually erodes self-esteem. It gradually dims your heart. It creates a distance that seems natural. But what it really is accumulated suffering. Suffering that no one notices. This pattern also affects your relationships. You become overly cautious about what you feel. It delivers little, waits little, asks for almost nothing. And this creates superficial relationships that die quickly. Not for lack of love, but for lack of courage to show who you are inside. You get used to giving the bare minimum so you don't get frustrated, and ends up receiving the minimum wage as well. It's a painful, invisible cycle, repeated without us realizing it. A cycle that robs you of the chance to experience deep connections. Connections you've always wanted. Life also begins to feel heavier. Simple tasks turn into tiring journeys. And the silence, which was once a refuge, becomes a prison. You find yourself thinking about what it would be like to have someone to rely on. Someone who truly knew you. And that thought hurts because it seems too distant. Loneliness becomes a habit, and habit becomes identity. You begin to define yourself by what you've suffered, and not because of what he might still be able to live for. This limits you without you even realizing it. Decisions are also affected. Those who live in isolation tend to choose safer paths, choose jobs, relationships, and routines that offer less emotional risk, even if they offer less happiness as well. Life becomes smaller, more contained, more silent. Not due to a lack of ability, but due to a lack of emotional courage. The fear of losing robs us of the strength to try. The fear of making mistakes robs you of the strength to begin. And you end up accepting far less than you deserve, because he believes he has no room to dream anymore. In the long run, this creates a profound emptiness. An emptiness that no distraction can fill. You can work hard, keep yourself very busy, help a lot of people. But when night falls, the silence brings back everything you tried to forget. And then the question returns. Why do I still feel alone? The answer is not simple, but it's true. You've been disconnecting from yourself by protecting yourself from the world. And when that happens, even the most beautiful days seem gray. Even happy moments seem so far away, because something inside you is still waiting to be seen. And perhaps the most painful consequence is this. You start to believe that you were born to be lonely, that their destiny is to remain on the sidelines. Intimacy isn't for you. But none of that is true. It's simply the sum of old wounds that never received care. It's the result of years carrying pain that wasn't hers. You are not incapable of connecting. You were just hurt too soon. And she learned to hide in order to survive. But this doesn't have to be forever. There comes a time when you need to hear a simple truth. You are not broken, you're just hurt. And injured people learn to protect themselves in ways that no one understands. His silence is not a sign of weakness. It's a scar. His distance doesn't mean he's disinterested. It's fear. And her heart, even in its quiet state, continues searching for something it may never have fully received. Emotional security. And that changes everything. Psychology shows that patterns are not sentences. They are simply repetitions that can be interrupted. With awareness, you begin to see the mechanism. You start to notice when he distances himself without reason, when she freezes in the face of a sincere approach, when someone declines invitations to avoid the possibility of rejection, and realizing this is the beginning of change. It doesn't require immense courage. It only requires one small step, acknowledging one's own pain, and welcome her without judgment. Healing begins when you understand that you no longer need to hide. You are not that child who had to be strong too early. You don't have to carry alone the weight that you were once taught to hold. Today you can choose something else. You can choose to open a crack. You can choose to say hi that you've never sent before. You can choose to stay a little longer in a conversation. You can choose not to run away when someone treats you kindly. Small gestures can change big stories. It's not about becoming extroverted, sociable, or having lots of friends. It's about allowing a real connection to happen, even if it's with just one person. It's about letting someone know a part of your inner world. It's about taking a deep breath and saying, "I'm scared, but I'm going to try." Because no one can heal their heart by living alone within it. Healing begins with encounter, even if it's a timid one, in a simple conversation, in a plea for help, at a vulnerable standstill, in a gesture that says, "I exist. I also deserve to be seen." Make peace with your scars. They tell their story, but they don't have to control their future. From the moment you understand where your isolation comes from, it ceases to be a prison. And it starts to become a choice, a conscious, mature, loving choice. From there, you can decide to make room for the new, for newcomers, for affections that don't hurt, for relationships that don't reopen old wounds, for a lighter emotional life. And remember this, you were not made to live alone in the world. You only got used to being alone because it seemed safer than being rejected. But now, as an adult, you have other tools, other forces, other ways to protect yourself without distancing yourself. You can get closer without getting lost. The door can only be destroyed. You can feel it without breaking. You can gradually rebuild the way you relate to others. Because of its history, it is still being written. At the end of it all, there is a silent spot inside you. One thing I always knew I deserved more than solitude. He deserved presence, care, and kindness. But he got used to living with less because it seemed safer. Today, you might be hearing this at exactly the right time. At the moment when the heart begins to ask for a little space to breathe, a little courage to try again. A little self-love is all it takes to avoid disappearing in silence. The truth is that his inner world still has much to reveal, and you don't have to cross it alone. You are not the distant person people think you are. You are not the silence that is implied in the label, not even the emptiness they project onto you. Behind what the world sees, there is depth. There is sensitivity. There is a tired but strong heart. A heart that continues to beat with hope, even after so many falls. And the mere fact that you're here listening to this already shows that there's an inner desire for change, a desire to be found, a desire to exist fully. Perhaps life has taught you to shrink, to fit into silences, accepting emotional crumbs, pretending that she didn't need anyone. But you need to. Every human being needs it, and there's absolutely no shame in that. There is beauty in admitting that the heart feels longing. It takes courage to admit that loneliness has become tiresome. There is truth in acknowledging that you also want to be loved. And if no one has ever told you this clearly, then I'm telling you now. You deserve connections that embrace your soul, not just your presence. She deserves relationships that don't abandon her at the first sign of trouble. It deserves people who listen, who care, who stay. And yes, there are people capable of that. There are people who won't hurt what you've worked so hard to protect. There are encounters that can renew your faith in life, and these people exist even if you haven't met them yet. Sometimes they arrive when you take the first step, even if it is small. So take a deep breath, feel your chest open up a little, let this new possibility in. It's not an empty promise nor an exaggerated motivational speech. It's simply the truth. You don't have to keep living behind walls. Life is not over for you. The connection is not lost. Affection is not far away. There's a whole world waiting for the moment you decide to show up. And that moment can begin now. If this video resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and turn on notifications. Not just to support the content, but to silently say that you are here, that you exist. What do you feel? And that, even with few friends, you are taking a step towards connecting, and that in itself is transformation.